Hello, my name is Matt. I'm a part of the Nextspace team. I'm about to show you HyperFarm, which is a joint effort between us and AgResearch. HyperFarm is about letting farmers estimate their environmental impact and finances. I'll do my best to run through everything in a short and concise manner. We start you off with a map of New Zealand, where you can use your cursor to zoom to your farm location or just search it at the top. I've pre-picked a location just to keep things predictable, so I'm going to fly to that. Once you're happy with the location, you can proceed at the bottom, and Lynn's public parcels will start loading in. The goal here is to pick the farm borders out by selecting multiple or one parcel. You're allowed to have disconnected shapes, you don't have to have them stuck together, but I'm going to keep things simple and proceed with this. Once you proceed, the parcels will be merged into one solid chunk, or if they're disconnected, it'll be multiple solid chunks. So I'm going to just proceed with this, but if you are unhappy, you can edit the borders to add points, remove points, or modify the shape entirely. So let's just go onwards. At this point, we're going to name our farm and proceed once again. There we go. We get an estimate of what's on the farmland. In my case, it is a bunch of pasture, a small piece of forest, some water, and a big unknown area. On this step, you're trying to categorize the land on your farm by either drawing new shapes, editing existing ones by changing them entirely, splitting them, merging them with others, or just changing their classification. I'm going to use the opportunity of this big unknown blob to change it to something more interesting. So let's go with a crop, let's say apple. If your focus is more on forests rather than pastures or crops, you can toggle the view up here, and I'll color things as such. So you can see modern forests are colored teal, and we don't have any other forests. So let me just quickly add old forests, so you can see it's brown. So old forests, if you cut them down, you get charged for the carbon credits, and new ones, when you grow them, you get carbon credits for doing so. So let me just put this back into a crop for a moment. Let's go grape instead. And let's proceed. On the next step, the focus is on the food production on your farm, specifically dry matter from grass. You can view the values over here as a checkerboard of 1 hectare cells. You can disagree with the values and change them one at a time, or as a bunch. I'm pretty happy with the numbers, so I'm going to just go back. And we can start entering how many animals we have. So let's say I have 200 of these, and you can see that 200 of them is way too much for how much food we're producing, but we're going to just go with it anyway. The farm is split up into 1 hectare cells to help you view the financial situation. So let's say if 1 hectare of your farm is making $5,000 a year, is that good for you personally? Or is that very bad? So you can adjust the scale to your own preference. It doesn't affect any calculations and is purely a visual indicator. I'm going to proceed with the default, and I'll show you what I'm talking about visually on the next step. There we go. So the farm is all set up, and we can start looking at the different statistics that were generated. Let's start by checking out things like the water quality. So we can see the farm is overall pretty good, medium to good. It is next to a river. Let's check out the financial situation. So there we go. That previous scale that indicated how much money a single cell should make now is used to color the different cells. So it doesn't affect any calculation, just how these cells here look. We can instead look at, let's say, carbon emissions as well. Overall, pretty good on my farm. And we can look at the similarity index. This will compare the soil conditions of your land to similar areas around the world where people have tried to grow things. For example, someone who tried to grow apples on similar land faced a bunch of limitations. You can view more information about what these limitations are over here and how they're gathered. We're not going to dive into that. Let's just proceed. Turn that off. A big part of HyperFarm isn't just looking at what your farm is like, it's simulating possible alternatives. So we're going to proceed to creating new simulation over here. Just call it simulation 1. This will make a copy of what we've set up so far and allow us to make some minor changes to the farm layout. So let's say I went screw having mixed pasture for cows and sheep, and instead let's get into the forest business. So we grew a new commercial forest here, and maybe we changed our mind about grapes and made blueberries instead. We can view recommended land use, once again done through similar soil conditions, and we can see what's recommended to grow on the farm for financial, water quality, carbon emissions, or the best of multiple worlds. Let's just proceed with that. We no longer have any animals on the farm, so we can ignore this step and move on. There we go. So now we have a farm and a simulation, and we can start making comparisons. So let's go over there to the compare farms step. We can see that our simulation seems to be doing a lot better on emissions and water quality. We can see that the labor per season is very different between growing trees and having animals. And we can look at the 3D side by side. So we can look at things like the different water quality cells, the finances, or anything else. HyperFarm has some additional tools you can use. For example, you can make measurements on the farm. You can view things in 3D, usually to take better pictures. Say there's a bunch of trees here, a bunch of bushes. Or you can dive into the finances. So here is a deep dive into how we calculate the estimates for your finances. You can see what's profitable and not profitable. And you can make adjustments if you disagree with some of our starting points. So you can say how much capital you have, how much equipment that depreciates over time, or disagree maybe with how much things cost. This has been a pretty basic look at HyperFarm and its potential. Thank you.